Welcome to Between the Horns as we get set for, well, hopefully a rebound. I'm Camryn Irwin alongside JV Long and Maurice Jones-Drew, of course, presented by your Southern California Toyota dealers. We've got some smiles on our faces, but I think we got to air a couple things out coming off the loss to the Dolphins on Monday Night Football. JV Long, it's a short week. How you feeling right now?
Don't look at me. No.
I'm looking straight at you.
I'm passing the baton. MJD, you go first.
I think there was a lot of new, and I don't want to say it got exposed, but when you don't work in a live game for 9 weeks together, you kind of saw that happening. There was a lot of, and this is just specifically the offensive line play. There were a lot of stunts that weren't passed off. There were a ton of pressures off of simple things that you could have communicated a little bit better. But that's going to be part of it though, right? Like, you brought all these guys back at once, No Boom, Avila, Jackson, but they haven't played together. And so that there's a thing, you know, if one day I have to work without JB, I'm going to struggle because I know who he is and how he pauses and certain things where I can jump in. Then you have to learn each other, if that makes sense. And I just feel like they haven't had that chance to really get to learn.
I just like that he's jumping straight into the
deep end.
I was going, how are you feeling? And we went straight into the thick of it.
Like, how's your flight this morning? Anything going on in life? No, let's talk offensive line.
Rip
the Band-Aid off, man. I feel like you just have to go right in and say, what's the elephant in the room?
I'll come back to the offensive line in a second. There's a lot to dig into there. But I think my high-level thought is the Rams picked a bad night to have a bad night. And in this league, it matters who you play and more when you play them. And they got Miami at the wrong time. And I know that to be true because not only did OBJ catch that 3rd down and 6 to basically clinch the game, but he did it at about the same time that Bitcoin hit an all-time high. So what's that tell you?
Yeah, he's winning. He's living right.
In many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough to see him on the opposite side along with Jalen Ramsey. I was going, ooh, that hurts a little bit because he was nasty to go against as well.
But in all seriousness, the Dolphins are good. That was the best 2-6 roster I think I've ever seen on an opposing sideline. They're playing better than their numbers. Yeah. Calais Campbell is playing like a top 5 defensive lineman right now. Getting Sealer back was just bad luck for the Rams because he was a force. So I think what's easy to say is that the Rams should have just left well enough alone, stuck with the status quo because it was working. But what I don't necessarily believe to be true is that Bo Limmer and Justin Dedich, a day 3 rookie and a college free agent, would have stopped the Miami Dolphins on Monday night. That's an easy argument to make. It's tough to prove. Maybe they would have. Maybe the results would have been even worse.
Yeah, I think what you said best was, you know, the Dolphins were 2-6 because they had been banged up. I mean, they're still not healthy. They don't have Chubb. They lost their other first round, Jalen Phillips, outside linebacker. They had Sealer out. You had Tua out for a while, right? So they have a roster that can compete and win in the AFC. We just so happened that they got healthy for Monday night. Is how it goes, right?
They were 2-6 for the same reason the Rams were 1-4.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys have already started in on the offensive line conversation and some of the words that have been tossed around this week: cohesion, inconsistent, and that's in regards to the offense in general, though. But I feel like we would be remiss to not actually dissect some of these situations, and especially considering the offensive line. Was the offensive struggles, was it solely the offensive line? Were there other aspects that you guys were looking to? How did this really play out? Because I think it left a lot of people's head left a lot of people scratching their head coming out of it.
Yeah, I think the offensive line is the engine of the offense, right? Like, no matter how good your quarterback is, no matter how good your receivers are, your running back, if you can't block the guys up front, you're going to have trouble. And I think that's what you saw on Monday it was just there was a ton of pressure. Stafford didn't have time to get the ball down the field to get to his progressions on certain situations. One guy would penetrate the offensive line, and then like Calais Campbell would just be sitting there waiting. Like, he was like, "Oh, I'm not rushing. I decided not to rush on this play because I know we're going to get penetration."
The deflections were almost as harmful as the pass rushes, were they not?
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you something, because I've read about and studied that the offensive line as a position group is like a weakest link unit, that you're only as good as your weakest link. And that may not be true of other places on the roster or other sports, but has that been your experience? Like,
Oh, yeah.
You can have 4 guys do the right thing, 1 guy busts, and it looks really bad.
Yeah, when they have to work as a chain, right? Like they're moving together. You have to move as one. When one doesn't step the right way, if it's a run play, we're all going left, and one takes a bad step left or he steps right, there becomes a gaping hole. And so getting those guys on the same page, in the same book, really, and just understanding this is how it goes, and it takes time. To be honest, it took me, when I played, it took me like 3 or 4 weeks to kind of get used to how they blocked, and then them used to how I run, right? It takes them time because it's 5 guys. How do we protect, right? Pass protection, right? If there's a guy sliding out, what is your kick step? Is it 2 yards that way? Is it vertical? Like, how are we moving so I know where to place myself? And so all those things, it takes time. And again, one of my, the blessing in disguise that I was talking about a couple weeks ago was that you had these young guys get in and get these reps. The problem with that blessing is the guys that you wanted to play weren't getting those reps, right? Those guys, they weren't learning each other. And so how do you go health over experience, or health over guys that have gotten those snaps? And I think that was the question you asked. Like, would have been better if Bo Limmer and Dedich played? Like, I don't know. I don't know, but it's just hard when you learn each other.
Here's the problem, though. What you said is true. It takes time. What do the Rams not have the luxury of anymore?
Time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a reminder that return to play is not necessarily return to performance. I know you're going to ask, like, okay, so what do you do going to New England? And we'll get to that in due time. But what Sean said yesterday really caught my ear. And I'll just read the quote because I felt the tension in what he said. You look at it and you say, all right, well, we have 8 games remaining. But you also have a responsibility to say, well, let's do what we think is best for this upcoming game. My read on that is there's a tension between what's the best bet for Sunday, and I don't have those answers, and what has the most upside for the rest of the season. And because Sunday is a must win, it has to be prioritized over everything else that you just said, I think, right? Experience, contracts, what might be the best lineup in December, because if you aren't better immediately on Sunday, there might not be a rest of the season.
Yeah, I think winning matters, right? And especially we're into the part of the season where good teams separate themselves from bad teams and great teams separate themselves from good teams. Last year, the Rams became a really good team, borderline great team as they made that run. And so if you're the Rams, you know that this is a very important time to start playing your best type of football. So the question is, like you said, do you go back to what you felt worked? Or do you go what you think will work going down the line? And if Sunday is a must-win game, then you go with what works, what you believe in your heart works, right? What you know works. That's what I would do.
It's going to be a tough balancing act and a question I'm glad I don't have to answer, but I'll give you a few numbers. Because going into that game, the Rams had only allowed 1 sack in the past 3, and that was a stark difference. I mean, the pass protection really broke down for Stafford in this matchup. It's going to have to be there. And there are some questions because as we head into this next matchup, there's also some struggles on the health front, again, to the offensive line. So where do you kind of expect that to be in terms of starting positions for these guys? Havenstein dealing with an ankle as well as Noteboom.
Yeah, I'd like to not give up on Havenstein's chances for week 11 just yet. It's only Thursday morning as we sit here, and I hope that maybe there's a ray of sunshine still to come, even though yesterday it sounded more pessimistic than optimistic. So maybe that solves for itself in terms of Warren McClendon is going to be that guy at right tackle anyway. But I don't necessarily feel like that's the crux of the matter.
No. It's interior.
It's interior. Okay.
Yeah.
Interior's your issue.
And I'm not going to pretend to know, Ryan Wendell's business or Zach Cromer's business or McVay or LaFleur's business.
It's our job to make to kind of go out there on a limb and say, like, this is what you've seen, right? Like the issue is this. And what I saw and what I believe the issue to be is there's been a lot of leakage between center and left guard. That was what it was this weekend. Then there was leakage right tackle to right guard, right? So the center and the right guard were fine, but it was the Note Boom getting picked on a couple plays and then Dotson not seeing it, or Note Boom giving up the inside and Dotson not being able to see it or communicate it, and then them being able to kind of slide that way. And the Dolphins took advantage of that. They just took advantage of whatever that issue might have been. And so the thing about the NFL that you always hear is no one cares about your problems. You have to fix these issues.
And that's where the weakest link question that I ask you comes in, is because when you have to be good with 5 or 6, 7, including a running back, against a team like the Dolphins, if you're not, they're going to find that weak link and exploit it.
And then this week going back, understand that the Patriots are going to run the exact same thing that the Dolphins ran. That's what happens in the league. We got to make sure did you kind of sure this up? Did you put that what's that tape they have on like the infomercials where the boat, like you could put the tape and ride the boat? Like, did you put that on it, or did you really like fix this thing and it's locked in? Because we're going to test it and make sure that your protection and your running game is going the right way.
But this is the week to put that special tape on. If you have some of that laying around, no leaks this week, no matter what.
No leaks.
Duct tape, bubble gum, whatever it is.
Figure it out, because if it happens again this week, then I think you're going to be down. It's going to be a long road going down the end of the season. Yeah.
Well, before I promise we will get to some bright spots and we talk about the response that we hope to see against the Patriots, we do have to talk about a little bit of red zone struggles. Los Angeles Rams were not able to find the end zone, and it really was difficult. And I'll give you a little reference, because as I'm sitting on the sidelines listening to you guys call the game, I'm going, man, just where is the golden snitch? I felt like we were so close. We kept finding ways to at least put the ball through the uprights, but we just could not find a way to get into the end zone. It was 0 for 3. How do they fix some of these red zone qualms, JB?
Can I actually throw a wrench in the proceeding? Because that's a totally valid question, and I'm really curious to see what MJD has to say about red zone. But I'm actually of the belief that the red zone woes are a symptom, not an illness. I think they're a result of underlying issues about the offense. And I think what they're actually doing is masking a larger problem, which is that the Rams cannot score from outside the red zone. That they're not explosive enough.
Uh-oh.
LA has 4 explosive touchdowns this season, but not really, because 2 of them are on defense. The only offensive touchdowns Rams have scored this season outside that 20-yard line area are the go ball to DeMarcus against the Vikings and the walk-off to DeMarcus in Seattle. I don't know, that feels like a much larger problem to overcome maybe than the inside the 20 stuff.
No, I agree. I think we were kind of talking before the show about, I listen to all these different talking heads, and you just want to make sure that your eyes and your brain is working and somewhat similar to others. But Dan Orlovsky said this about the Chicago Bears, and he said the problem with the Chicago Bears is they're not taking enough shots down the field. And what happens is when you don't take enough shots down the field, you don't even have to convert them. Just throw it down, because you want to back off the coverage to open up everything else. The Rams haven't had that ability, and so the coverage keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And so that makes the windows that Stafford has to throw in smaller. That makes the margin for error smaller. And so now you're dinking and dunking down the field where you're getting explosive plays, but they're off of screen passes, or Puka Nacua breaks a tackle on an over route, or, and those are explosive plays. But where's the shot down the field that we used to see, right? We talked about Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks earlier about how those guys, you see those guys getting down the field. Again, it reminds me of the Houston game from the 95-yard or 97-yard that they threw to Robert Woods, taking those shots down the field. And I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's a lack of speed with your starting guys.
What if it's protection?
Or protection. I don't know what it is.
Time.
Right. Yeah. But that ability has to happen, because I remember when Stafford first got here against the Bears in SoFi, he threw a post to Cooper Kupp, probably 50, 60 yards down the field. And he was by himself. But what did that do to the Chicago Bears? It forced them to back up. Then they came back and threw another pass to Van Jefferson down the field. And what did that make them do? You have to back up. Now I can just do all the stuff I want to do inside. And it allows you to really put stress on the defense, where I don't see the Rams offense stretching the defense vertically as much as they used to.
Yeah. If the red zone and finishing drives is the problem, and I'm not denying that it is, the quickest solution is, score before you hit the 20.
Yeah, let's not get there.
Okay, so now let me turn it over to you, because I can't design a red zone play to save my life. If you were brought in as an offensive consultant this week,
Yeah.
What are some of your recommendations?
Simple. Very simple. I think speed outs to Cooper Kupp, option routes to Cooper Kupp are huge. Big body slants to Puka Nacua when you get into the tight red zone. I think Kobe Parkinson at tight end throwing a fade to him would just help out. It just attacks the defense in different ways. And to explain kind of the red zone thought process of an offensive coordinator, you have 6 areas that you want to hit. You have the front of the pylon, right? The front pylons. You have the back pylons. And then you have the field goal post, right? That's the area where they throw a high ball going across. I think we've seen a couple of those passes caught. I think Demarcus Robinson had one. A couple of guys have made those throws. Those are the 6 areas that you want to hit in the red zone. It's how do you layer those areas though? Do you use play action pass to get a linebacker to step up? Do you get a guy crossing to come across? If you remember Minnesota, they ran to the front left pylon like every time they got in the red zone early in that game because that's what they were doing. They were running guys around the back this way, and they'd have a guy coming from right to left this way and a guy going from left to right over the back, and it just messes with your coverage. I don't really see as much of that. And so I think because of the protection possibly, and you have Matthew Stafford and you could do so many complex things, then maybe you just simplify it, right? And maybe it's just, hey, if we get Kobe Parkinson out wide on a shorter corner, throw the fade.
I don't know. You're talking about simplifying, and I just think about the streak that Kyron Williams had finding the end zone to start the season as well.
Just keep giving it to him.
Just over and over and over. And they found him on a receiving, what was that, 2 games ago?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
I think they tried it against the Dolphins. They tried to run it against the Dolphins.
He had one look.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
So I don't know if this is running against the grain to what you just said, but can I just offer it anyways? Trying to be like solution oriented here. Again, shoot this down if it doesn't make sense. But I was trying to draw inspiration from what some other recent teams have done against the Rams in the red zone. And you mentioned what the Vikings did. How about the names that have scored red zone touchdowns against the Rams recently? Malik Washington, Trent Sherfield, Josh Oliver. I don't think those are on many fantasy football teams.
No, not at all.
So is it like find a new target, try something different, run a gadget play like the Vikings and Dolphins have done against the Rams? Is it use your stars as decoys and go somewhere else? Or is that just not helpful?
No, I think it is. You're willing to try anything at this point, right? And talking to Sean after the game, you could tell he's like his brain was racking, and I get it. I've been there. My little kids we lost on Saturday. I was devastated.
Sometimes that's when he's at his best, though.
Yeah, it forces you to kind of go back and self-scout and say, what can I have done better? What can we do? How can I get my guys in a better position? Where did I mess up to not put them in position to be successful, right? And I think that's when you get in the red zone sometimes, and it kind of goes back to Detroit last year. It was like ever since Detroit slowed them down, it was like they couldn't necessarily get the red zone going again like it used to be.
I want to think back because I actually went back and watched the broadcast, and I saw Sean's halftime interview, and he talked about just some self-inflicted wounds. And I think there are 2 specific moments for me looking back to this matchup with the Dolphins that I felt like the tone could have been set, and each time it went the direction of Miami. And it's the first drive for Miami, because you think about what they were able to do. They got him in 2nd and 15. Then that turns into 3rd and 13. 2 escapes and then finds Waddle for 33 yards. That next play, touchdown. Where's the second point of adjustments? Halftime, right? It's the second time you can make a massive shift in momentum. And I think about what the Rams were able to do coming back out. They tried to establish the run. Things were looking great. And then next thing you know, all of a sudden you have the high snap. Things get rough. Cardi kick. You have the false start, misses the 57-yarder. So instead of 10-9, it's now 10-6, and a complete shift in momentum when you have control, just in terms of the environment heading into those 2 situations. I think if the Rams kind of turn both of those the opposite direction, we would be sitting and having a very different conversation at this juncture.
That's the agony of being your own worst enemy. Is the good news is it's within your control. The bad news is you had it under control.
It's in your control.
And I think about the 2 losses that right now I think are real raw nerves for Rams fans. They were both at SoFi Stadium, Packers and Dolphins. Let's not lose sight of the fact that the Rams outplayed both of those teams. They didn't win, but they outplayed them. More first downs, more yards per play. But a Stafford pick and a Kyron fumble in plus territory to add to what you just laid out there, Camryn, and it goes against you. And now your margin for error is shrinking for a team that already didn't have a big margin for error. Now it's probably down to its last breath.
Yeah, I will say this. I love the scheme of the defense going into the Dolphins game, right? They were showing different looks and running cover two, which was awesome. But when that's not who you are, that's not what you do all the time, you're going to have mistakes. The play where you talked about where Tua Tagovailoa kind of slides up and finds Jalen Waddle, they were in cover two, and Tyreek was running, streaking down the field. He was covered by, I forget which safety it was, but one of the safeties had him. But so did Kobe Durant, who was supposed to be covering Jalen Waddle on that, Jalen Waddle on the other side. So it was like, I see Tyreek streaking, I want to cover him, but my guy's over here. And so when you kind of mix up and you switch your scheme week to week, you'll have those kind of snafus. Now, that's where we talked about the second half adjustments. The Rams did a great job. They were coming down, running downhill. They were mixing things up. They were getting after it. And then it was just like an errant snap, right? And again, that's just from not playing. When you have a guy right in front of you, and I've talked to a lot of centers about it, when you have a guy in front of you or there's a guy to your left and you have to reach him, like the last thing you're worried about is snapping this ball back, like to get to the quarterback safely. Like you're like, I got to snap and step. I got to snap and do this. I got to get there. And that's when you have a lot of errant snaps. And so again, I think that's just not having a lot of reps at that throughout the season that kind of gets you there.
Well, we are at the halfway point. So to my own point, we're going to actually change the tone a little bit here and shift because you mentioned the defense for the Los Angeles Rams. And I think that was a bright spot coming out, especially when you consider going into the fourth quarter, they held them to 17 points. Like they put themselves in a great position defensively. What have you seen from them in the last 4 or so games? Because it feels like things are not just trending the right direction, but they are currently stacking performances.
I think it's a real testament to Chris Shula and company. And I know that folks thought I was being a little bit negative on this show last week because I was wary of that Seattle win. I didn't love the fact that there were some talking heads out there suddenly picking the Rams to win the West. I was not trying to be a wet blanket. I was trying to be sober. I was trying to be honest. And what we flagged last week as concerning definitely came to bear again on Monday night. But I will own this. I was wrong about the fact that I didn't think the Dolphins would let the Rams tee off on Tua, and they did. They wrecked shop again. And I think Monday night showed they're more than just a pass rush, tip drill, takeaway unit. Like Jared Verse has become appointment television in the National Football League. He gives you that Aaron Donald-like anticipation of what might he do this week.
Yeah, I think it's funny because it's not just him either. Like Kobe Turner was lights out in this game. Bobby Brown was amazing in the running game. Like it's the energy that he brings that reminds me of Aaron that kind of permeates through that that defensive line, right? And now it's starting to get to the linebackers and to the safeties, and you're seeing guys play with that confidence and that swagger. I mean, just the fact that he ran through Teron Armstead, hit Tua, and then recovered the fumble after all that. And to be honest, he didn't recover the fumble. He took it from the O-lineman who had it and came out with it. Like that type of effort and energy and scrappiness, that's what you see from this team, right? In both the running game and the passing game. Roseboom finds a play and you see everyone turn around and go get blocked and how excited they were to go get blocks. I mean, it was just, there were so many different things that happened in that game. I mean, Kobe Turner, what made me so excited about what they're doing to see him making tackles down the field on receiver screens, right? Normally D linemen don't make those type of plays, but that energy that he was bringing to go and get that, it just shows how like that's who they are. That's what they've become.
I'm glad you said Roseboom there too, because one of my main takeaways from that game is good on the linebackers. I hope that's a confidence builder for those off-ball linebackers because Roseboom should have had 2 picks. And if he and Omar Speights can do that against that Dolphins roster, then that's going to play again against New England and Philadelphia and New Orleans beyond. Like I think that was a real step forward. We talked about how the front has kind of been insulating and elevating the next 2 levels of the defense. I think the linebackers are coming along too.
They are.
So many jumping off points from some of the topics you guys discussing. And I think especially your conversation with Les this week. And the word he used is a contagious chemistry in regards to that defense and especially Jared Verse. And I think there is something to that, like building alongside one another. And also to your point on Kobe Turner, he had a season high grade at 90.8. Turner, Young, and Verse all with a sack in this matchup versus the Dolphins. And I mean, Verse's numbers, they just continue to climb. He's now leading the NFL in terms of pressure percentage at 19.7. So he's not just good for a rookie anymore. He's good amongst the rest of the herd.
I mean, I think he's closer to defensive player of the year than any other rookie is to NFL rookie of the year on defense.
Well, I'll say this. The Byron Young sack, right, that he got was more of a cleanup, right? Because Jared Verse came in and then Turner, they're all like running after him. And then like he's running around and then here comes Byron Young getting off a block and then accelerating. Like they can play off each other well, which is funny because you normally don't see that with a young group. Young groups don't know how to play off each other. They just kind of play and then you just fall into stuff. But these guys are one play, maybe Byron Young with a pressure and then Verse comes in or Fisk comes in or Turner or like the way Bobby Brown manhandled them dudes in the running game. Like that's what it should have been. That's what it should be all the time. He was just throwing guys all around. When you have 5 guys that can play like that, like we talked about the offensive line being the weakest link, your defensive line can be a strength. It can be something that can really take your defense to the next level.
I started this week by saying that my Monday night takeaway is that the defense continues to build the foundation and raise the floor for this year's team. That I think even after a loss, it's higher for me because of what the defense showed me against the Dolphins. We just don't know where the offense is capable of building that ceiling yet. Right. And it's time to find out because time is now running short.
Before we head on to just a little bit of a mid-season reset, I also want to give you your flowers because you might have had the best line. Oh, come on now. One of the best lines.
Why do we need to do this? I don't even know what she's saying.
Because
we don't need
you had me dying on the sidelines, and I'm sure you did as well, talking about Christian Roseman. Yes, he came up with the interception, but on that near second one, follicles on fire, JV Long. And he's got lettuce coming out the back of his helmet. I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, how did you come up with that? That was too good.
When you're green with envy.
That's so funny.
It's not fair that she has us in her ears during the game and our ears have noise canceling headphones that block her out.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably a good thing for you guys.
No, not at all.
Because then we don't get to come in here and embarrass her on Thursday.
I'm not. That was an amazing line. I was dying.
I will say sometimes when you go on the big screen, JB will be talking to me and I'll kind of be looking, trying to like read your lips. And then I'm like, huh? Oh, let me go back over here.
You know what's really funny? The folks in here behind the cameras have something for you. Maybe not this episode, but on a future episode.
Oh.
There's a screen grab of the two of us. I think it was in Seattle. And I'm doing my normal thing going ballistic. And you are as stoic as ever. Like just as chill as you can be.
It was cold. And guess what? It's going to be cold again this weekend.
One of these weeks we'll have Camryn show the audience and compare and contrast the emotional roller coaster that I go through on Sundays.
I get it.
And then just the steady
the weather. If it's a great day, I'll go with you. But if it's one of those cold days,
maybe they can just B-roll it right now and show the audience and get on with it. Sorry for that sidebar. She started it.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to see it. All right, guys, a little bit of a mid-season reset. As we look to the midway point, the Los Angeles Rams are kind of looking to their history and hoping they can replicate it from last year to this year. They won 7 of the 8 after week 10 last season. I'm looking through our remaining schedule, guys. We got 8 left. How many do we need? We have 4 of the next 6 on the road, 2 trips east, 1 trip south. It's a tough remaining schedule.
Yeah, but I would say relative to last year, right now, they're closer to the division lead. They're closer to a playoff spot with a better record. And I would argue with a healthier, deeper, more proven roster. Like the Rams roster is better now than it was when they left for Detroit, when they broke camp, I think. And the only reason I stopped short of saying like it's definitely better than last year is because there's a first ballot Hall of Famer who's missing. But like statistically, defensively, they're better than last year's group. Shoot, special teams, I mean, it's not even close.
My goodness.
It's not even close.
No kidding.
And I had to remind myself that when was it that last year's group locked in and really found their true offensive identity? Do you remember? Week 12 at Arizona. That's when it happened. So we're not even there yet. Last year's group had one 30-point performance before that trip to the desert last year. So my takeaway, I guess, if I'm a hope merchant, is it's not too late so long as you win this Sunday.
Yeah, I think, again, you played a playoff caliber team in Miami. And to be honest, like you said, you really manhandled that game. You just gave it away, I felt like. There were opportunities there that you could have taken advantage of that you didn't. And that I don't want to call it a moral victory, but again, understanding who you are. Like, okay, we can go out here and play. It's not like Miami came in here and just dominated this game. No, defensively, you did your part. Offensively, you had some plays that you left out there. You have some, we call it self-inflicted wounds. Going down this stretch, you're going to play some playoff teams. Philly, right?
Buffalo,
Bills,
San Francisco,
Arizona,
Cardinals,
right? So you have a chance to go in and really boost your confidence if you can come out of this game here with a victory on the road. Like, let's be honest, is New England's playing really good football right now. And it's not, what I mean by good football is, I know it's not scoring 30 points, but if you don't play your best football, they'll beat you. Let's remember, Seattle went to overtime with them early in the game with Jacoby Brissett there. They went to Chicago and manhandled the Bears. Like, they're just a team that if you allow them to hang around and you don't play your best football, it could get ugly in Boston or in Foxborough, wherever they are.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Go ahead.
No. Follow up on that.
I was just going to say we're going to look to the NFC West, but if you got a follow-up from there.
One more thing on last year, because the big difference that I see, the one thing that's not in the Rams' favor right now is I remember distinctly early on last season saying, hold the phone, Matthew Stafford's playing like an MVP and nobody's talking about it. And the results just hadn't quite caught up to his performance. That's not the case right now. Let's just call it what it is. Like, that's not where we are in this year. There's been some mean regression, and especially when it comes to his production when he's under pressure. And so I think the big question is whether or not what we believe is going to be the case is proven, which is that his best reps, his best ball is still to come in the second half of this season. Because I get it, the microscope right now, like that lens does not look very good. But trust me when I say, if you zoom out a little bit and you get one more win this weekend and you look at the telescope, we're going to be sitting in these same chairs next week saying the Rams have won 4 of their last 5 games. And there are not many teams in the league that can say that. And that's good work in this sport, no matter which team you are or what schedule you're playing.
No, you're exactly right. Like, I'll end it with this. November and December football are where you make your biggest strides. Because again, if you can win 2 or 3, 4 in November, what it was a couple years ago, the Rams won none in November, right?
No win November to undefeated December.
And that's what happens. Like, every now and then, like, you could, these 2 months, you can make up a ton of ground on everything that's went on throughout the season. So if you can play your best now, it's definitely needed.
All right. Well, we have to take a little bit of a peek into the NFC West. I know we've been talking about potentials in playoffs, but are the 49ers still the team to beat from your perspective? Cardinals going into a bye week right now, but 49ers are now hosting the Seahawks on Sunday, coming off 2 straight.
What do you think?
I think they're the team to beat. I think
Niners
I think you get Christian McCaffrey back, and they're dangerous. I mean, their wins are Cowboys and Bucks over the last 2 weeks, so. You know,
I'm
maybe not the biggest.
Arizona.
You want to start with Arizona?
I'm terrified of Arizona.
Because why?
They're physical. That's the one thing that Arizona has never been. When Cliff Kingsbury was there, it was all like high flying, 4 wides, 3 wides. They'll come out in 13 personnel. I remember when you brought that up. And they'll run James Conner. And they'll play physical football. And then when they get down to the red zone, Kyler's legs come into play. And Marvin Harrison
to the pylon.
Like it's just when you have to stop the run in Arizona and he can pull the ball and run down he's still probably the fastest guy on the football field and run. Like, I'd love to see him and Lamar Jackson race, because that would be a really good race for me. Because I think those probably are, and then Tyreek, you throw Tyreek in there too. Those are probably the 3 fastest guys that we don't ever talk about how fast Kyler is. But what they did to the New York Jets and what they've done to everyone that's coming into Arizona has been insane.
I think their pole position is real. It has to be acknowledged now because they have 6 wins. They're idle. They're open. And they also have games against the Patriots and Panthers still to come, plus 2 against the Seahawks. So they may not have to beat the Rams or the Niners to win this division. That's what's scary too, I think. However, I will say this. Their next 3 games will tell us everything we need to know about Arizona. At Seattle, at Minnesota, home to Seattle. Like, Kyler and the Cardinals, they've put together some good front nines. But winning that green jacket is something different.
It is. They do play well in the beginning, for sure. But them being able to come out in 13 personnel and be physical tells me that they can play later in the year.
And to your point about the Niners, I don't think you're wrong. I probably tend to agree with you, but I'm going to withhold judgment until their road trips to Green Bay and Buffalo the next couple of weekends. And also, don't forget, San Francisco's playing a record number of teams coming off their byes.
Mm-hmm.
And another reminder of that is this weekend against Seattle. Paradoxically, the Rams better hope they didn't break Seattle. Right?
DK doesn't think so.
Go DK.
Right. He wasn't there, right? So hopefully he goes out
for
there.
For the Rams' rooting interests.
We need them.
That's all I'm saying.
I gotcha. The Seahawks have lost 2 straight, to your point, so let's see if they can rebound. I think, guys, it's time for us to look ahead to our next opponent. You've already broken it down just a bit, MJD, but the Patriots. And this is the first time the Los Angeles Rams are heading back that direction to New England since 2016. You better have your warm weather gear ready to go. Cold weather gear ready to go.
Already looked at it. It's like 42. It's like a low of 42.
I thought it was better than that.
Okay. 42 in Boston is like, it's like 20 here.
I agree with what you said, though. Right opponent, right time for the Rams, because I think there's just enough resistance. I know I gave you like a shock face when you said they're playing good ball, but there's just enough resistance at some key areas to test the Rams' progress on a short week, but hopefully not enough like firepower to beat you so long as you don't beat yourself.
Right. I agree. I think each week is a different challenge, right? And you just got put in a situation where this defensive line is going to challenge your offensive line, very similar to what the Miami Dolphins did. So you get a repeat test, right? It's kind of like school when you have a test and the teacher goes, "Here, I want you to do it over again and take it back." Like, well, you better hope you've learned from those mistakes so that you can go. And I think that's what this week is. Can you really, whatever line you put out there or whatever goes you put out there, can they protect your quarterback? Can you run the football? Because that's what the New England Patriots do. They stop the run and they get after the quarterback. Offensively, you're going to deal with a different offense, but defensively, I feel like they're still playing at such a high level. You don't have to worry about it right now. The concern is the offense scoring explosive touchdowns and running the football.
So make sure Ramondre Stevenson and the running game don't get started. Hunter Henry is their top target. And then what? Make Drake May as a rookie beat you from a hot pocket?
That's what it has to be.
I was just about to ask you the challenge of containing Drake May. Have you noticed anything film-wise about where he likes to escape and what he might be able to do just as a dual threat?
He's not afraid to run. Mm-hmm. But the problem with him running is he'll take hits. And that's the difference. Where most of these quarterbacks, they'll scramble, they'll get out of bounds, or they'll slide. He likes to slide late. So he'll scramble left, right, up the middle. He'll figure out where to go, because if it breaks down, he's going to get that's the other kicker. He's young. So when it breaks down, his eyes go down. They don't stay down the field like a Russell Wilson used to. Like, he scrambled looking to throw the football. Once his eyes go down, he's looking to take off and run and get yards. And so if you're the Rams, that's what you want, right? I don't want you looking down the field. I want you to look at this pass rusher, what's going on. I want you to hear these voices, and then we'll always have someone there to help you. I would always have someone stunting around or waiting for him, kind of what the Dolphins did to Stafford when they ran their stunts. They didn't go up the field. The guy that penetrated, there was one guy that would penetrate, and the other guy would kind of just loop around and wait at the line of scrimmage.
I'll be honest, I violated the 24-hour rule. You can find me if necessary. I couldn't get around to the Patriots here by Thursday morning. I was watching too much Dolphins Rams still.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
That's tonight's task, or maybe save it for the plane on Saturday. That's when I'll do my Drake May study.
It's okay. I got in there for you. Don't worry about it.
Oh, it's pretty funny too, because watching back the Rams and Dolphins, I was like, I feel like I need to exercise while watching this. So like the treadmill was turned up to 7, and as the game continued on, it just kept getting faster and faster, and got a little frustration out in that regard.
Good strategy.
It is a good strategy.
I do that too. I've never thought about that.
Just start lifting
weights. How come everyone on the show works out so much? Last week it was Stu, just
so lifting, like squatting. Oh my goodness. I got to get back to it.
Well, I can tell you one thing. The Patriots have been struggling versus the run this season. They actually look to establish their own run game. It hasn't been that strong thus far. However, it was a point of emphasis in their last matchup versus the Bears. For the Rams, how do they get their own run game going? You've got some big names between Kyron Corum and then, of course, Rivers. But can they do it against this team?
I mean, I think that's the challenge, right? You're playing an AFC opponent, and the AFC normally has bigger players. It's weird. If you ever look at how they play, they're bigger guys. You remember Baltimore last year, bigger linemen. It's just a different brand of football the AFC plays in the NFC. And so this is a great opportunity to go out there and see if your running game and your techniques and your players are where they need to be able to make a run. And again, I talked about the test. Just like it was in pass protection, it's the same thing here against New England in a run game where they're going to be a 3-4 front. They're gonna put big dudes in the middle, and they're going to hold up. How are you going to attack this team as you get going forward?
Another anecdote from this past weekend, the Pats were able to get home 9 times against Caleb Williams. So it's going to be important, again, looking back to this Rams offensive line.
Got a coordinator fired.
Got him up out of there, right? Test number 2.
Time will tell if that was more about Caleb and the Bears or more about what this emerging Patriots team is doing.
All right, guys, before we wrap up, we've got just a few minutes left. Let's dig into some keys to victory. JB and MJD, I'm looking to you. Who wants to start this week? You always toss it back my way, but
yeah, Camryn has to go first.
Yeah.
After watching the last matchup with the Bears, I just was really impressed with the arm strength of Drake May. I think he's really athletic, and I think our ability to contain him is going to be critical. Can we make him wildly uncomfortable? So that's going to be my key to victory, and especially I just am replaying Tua a little bit on that first touchdown, and so I would really like to see us have the ability to kind of slow Drake May down in a very, very slow and steady manner.
I'll take your cue on first touchdown because that was top of mind. First, I'll say short weeks have been Sean McVay's specialty, and early alarm kickoffs have been good to Sean McVay's Rams over the year too. So you're going short week, early time zone, rise and shine. And so I'm kind of thinking like my key is start and finish. For once, build a lead. For once, put an opponent away. You know, if you were listening, that we were talking about this on Monday night. The Rams have been held completely scoreless in 6 of their 9 first quarters. Yikes. And to the point about finishing, they have 4 wins, right? But like 2 have been walk-offs, San Francisco and Seattle. And then the other 2 have been saved by the defense at the end because the offense couldn't deliver that dagger, Las Vegas and Minnesota. So again, I'm continuing to like lower the floor with like least insightful key to victory and between the horns history, but take the lead and extend the lead. Yeah, no duh. That's it for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to kind of piggyback on that a little bit. I think getting the first down on your first drive to start the game is huge. And I think scoring on your first drive is huge. But I also think coming out of half, if we do win the toss and you defer, scoring then. Because that's how you start fast. And I thought the Rams were on their way to doing that. I was gonna like rag on you too, like in the broadcast, like, oh, here we go, JB. They did it, right? I was ready to go. But taking advantage of those opportunities to start the game fast is gonna be very important for the Rams offensively. Because if you notice, like if they don't start fast, it's kind of like, oh, then it takes a little while for them to get going. But if they do start fast, you get that first down early, you kind of get in a rhythm a little bit. You either kick a field goal early on or you score a touchdown. When they're upbeat, they can go. And so it's just about getting that momentum going. So I'm going to piggyback with you and say scoring in the first drive of the game, and then if it's coming out of half, having the ball.
And
score
if the
as
offense
well.
needs a mulligan, like look, the one thing I think the defense can and will do better is like beat the opponent's script. Right, like Vikings went right down on them a couple times, and Miami did it too. As great as they've been, and let me say it again, they have been an elite defense now. Like this is a defense-driven team until proven otherwise, and there's nothing wrong with that except for our summer preconceptions. But maybe another step forward for them this week: defeat that Patriot script.
I like it. I'll give you a couple anecdotes to close this thing out. The Patriots O-line has had some issues health-wise. That might be good for the Rams pass rush. They've got 10 different starters on this season, 11 different combinations. And I also feel like we just need to give a big star on the homework of Cardi, the kicker.
Oh, yeah. Good call out.
Yeah, 5. Really should have been 6.
Yeah,
Should have been.
The 52 was good with plenty to spare, right?
Yeah.
But when it turned into 57...
All right, he gets an A+ for the
What
week.
about where the folks can buy the jacket that you're wearing? Because I know that comment is coming.
How about it's coming. I believe you can buy this on ramsnfl.com, something along those lines. I don't have the exact.
Fan shop?
I'm sorry, fan shop. There you go. How sweet is this? I'll give you a nice little turnaround. Pretty sweet.
Which collection is that?
I believe this is from Russell Westbrook. Correct.
Well, Russ,
So thanks.
go Bruins.
Shout out to our marketing team
Man, they turned it around, huh?
for getting the hookup.
Hey, listen, man, there's great things can happen in the month of November. we're just excited to be able to play another game. I don't even know who we're playing this week. Do you know?
Yeah, you're on the Friday night road at Washington.
Oh, Washington.
Is this the rivalry game with
Are
DeMarco
you even
week?
a fan?
I am a fan, but I have I got a lot going on.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, is it
Deshaun,
really? Is
Coach
it really
of the Year candidate?
He should be. Is it really I never lost to Washington in college, so I don't know what that rivalry is like. I never. So
Okay, right.
What if Cameron's Cougs beat the Dogs and your Bruins beat UW in the same season? DeMarco will never live it down.
I won't even bring it up.
Man,
I'll just look at him.
I can't wait to hang it over his head. Just a little.
He's doing great, by the way. DeMarco's doing awesome. He was here on Monday with Les. He's got a morning talk show now.
Yes, I know there were some comments. We love DeMarco.
Love DeMarco.
Don't go wrong on that side.
Go Bruins.
All right. I'm getting the wrap up. I see Jory in the backdrop going, all right, Cam, because I told him I wasn't going to go long, and here we are 45 minutes later. I'm so sorry, but hey, we're so glad
You need to get
that
Harry Potter in. What happened to Harry Potter?
Oh, no, I did. It was just so subtle.
Oh, okay.
It was the golden snitch. I was going to talk about quaffles, but then I just got a little aggressive.
We warned it was going to go right over our heads.
Oh, yeah, we wouldn't buy it. I didn't even see
Somebody
it.
got the Harry Potter reference. Yes, I'm a total nerd. But hey, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Between the Horns, brought to you by our Southern California Toyota dealers, Camryn Irwin, MJD, and of course, JB Long. We can't wait to see you.